Hey guys, how's it going? Sorry, I hope you can hear me okay. I had to come in on my phone. I'm about to come in on the laptop. I don't know what it's doing, driving me nuts, going slow. Technology doesn't seem to be working today for you, girl. Let's see who we got in here and say hi to people. Hey, Aries Purk. Hey, Diane Marie. Hey, Deb. Hi, Shamita. Hi, Gregory. Hi, Tony. Hi, Carolina Moon. Vanessa will be. Hey, S. Daniel, how you doing? How's everybody doing today? Mike, 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 Mike. Guess what day it is? Hump day. What a trial day, though, y'all. That I don't know if you guys all watched or didn't watch or what, but it was crazy. All right, give me just a second. I'm going to come in on the laptop, okay? I'll be right back.
Hey, Amelia Sparkles. Hey, Laura. Hey, AJ. Cat. Oh, hey, and 5, 6, 7, 8. Hey, Laura. How's everybody today? Oh, my goodness. It's already been hectic, and I'm 2 seconds into the show. So, yeah, today was a crazy day. I don't even know where to start, but we should probably start at the beginning and with this. So, give me just a 1 second.
And Kai, when you're on Jen Lou's channel, what do you do with the like button?
Smash, smash, smash! Yeah.
All right, so if you guys could do your girl a solid and give her a thumbs up on the stream, I'd greatly appreciate it. It helps me get out there, helps get the video suggested, all the things. I personally, although I don't have any scientific data to back it up, I personally believe it helps with notifications, but that's just me. So let me get over here to the YouTube so we can get this show on the road, as it were, because it was wild today. It started out wild. Um, I was confused at a lot of points because some of these witnesses, at first I had to take a moment because I wasn't sure. I was like, wait a minute, isn't the defense, it's their case now, right? Like, isn't that what we're doing? Yeah. So it was so bizarre. I can't figure it out, honestly. So let's get over to law and crime. And I want to show you guys what happened today. So let's see. All right, here we go. I hope everybody's doing well on this Thursday. Sorry about the earlier time. Decipher has a thing they're doing at 10 tonight for, I think they're about Mallory Beach. And I wanted to go check that out. Hey, K-Braze. Hey, Last Breadstick. Hey, Truth Teller. I watched two. Oh, yes. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for your power lines, Last Breadstick. That's awful. I guess it's still February. It's warming up here, so it's nice. I'm sorry, that's terrible. But you can crash you can come crash at my pad in Florida if anything happens, okay? Oh, okay. So I did start to watch the Netflix doc. I did. There's 4 episodes. I'm on episode 3. I like it so far, but there's some parts where I'm just like, wait. I will say this: if you have Netflix, you should absolutely, definitely come. You should definitely check it out. And the reason I say that is because the kids that were involved in the boat accident are finally speaking, and I don't know what prompted them to speak. I mean, Anthony Cook has always spoken, but Miley, Connor, and Morgan are speaking, which Morgan was Paul's girlfriend at the time. And Connor and Miley were boyfriend and girlfriend. And, AJ Cook is in this one too. Tinsley is in it. So I'm not going to give you too many spoilers because that's rude and I would never do that. But I am finding it interesting, and there are things in it that are new that I had not heard before. So definitely, if you get an opportunity, not now because we're going to talk about the trial. Hey, Karen Morin, good to see you. Hey, twin mom. So yeah. Hey, Jennifer. So yeah, we're gonna talk about it all, and because today was. I don't even know how to describe it, you guys. Also, it's coming up. I know it's not quite the end of February. We do have a few more days, but February is a short month. So I'm going to drop my membership link. If you guys want to check that out, I'm working on doing some more stuff over there. I really want to get this whole Saturday or Sunday night true crime trivia thing going because I think that would be fun. But I'm just there's so much with this dadgum trial that I haven't really been able to do anything but cover this trial. So if you got a fear of commitment and you just want to send your girl a PayPal or a Cash App, that's cool too. It's no obligation. Obviously, it's never required. It's always appreciated. Just your presence is also appreciated as well. I'm always grateful for everybody that comes and listens. Okay, so let me make this big. And thank you. Very sweet. Thank you, Laura. Thank you very much. Hey, Ellie. Good to see you. Well, we're going to get into that, Karen. I want to play what happened this morning, and then we're going to talk about it. All right. Hi, Jesse Weber. Good to see you. Oh, wait. Too far. All right, hold on. Let me see. I hope I didn't miss it. Hold on.
So let's listen a little bit more to his testimony where he outlines.
Oh, no. I got all excited for nothing. This is. All right. Crap.
They sounded odd, and then he told me that the chat there.
Sorry, y'all. All right. Now we're doing it. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you so very much.
Good morning. Ready for the jury?
Mr. Griffin has a matter he wishes to address with the court.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Wait, before he gets started, can I just say real quick for everybody, I see Truth Teller and we've already talked through email, but I wanted y'all to know that I have solved the Alec Murdaugh standing up or not standing up situation. I watched today like it was my full-time job, okay? What I noticed is that this judge does not always require the people in the court to stand when the jury enters. However, he requires them to stand when they leave. So I have noticed today that Alec has been standing every time the jurors leave. Also, I want to say, nobody was more surprised this morning than myself when Mr. Jim Griffin stood up well, really, when Harpootlian said that Mr. Griffin had something to discuss with the court, I was shocked. Okay, because I thought the Poot and I had an understanding. I thought we had decided that we were going to just give Jim some back issues of Highlights magazines and let him be busy with the word searches and the hidden objects and reading about, Goofus and Gallant and all the things, and if he runs out, I'm pretty sure I can get some, like those kids menus that are also busy work for him if that happens. So I was not prepared for Mr. Griffin to stand up and speak today. And I was, Mr. Harpootlian, and I say this with every ounce of respect that I can muster, but we talked about this, sir, and I am disappointed. Wait till y'all hear what Mr. Griffin has to say. Here we go. Without further ado.
We are discussing with Mr. Murdaugh his right to testify or not testify. And one of the issues that has come up is the scope of cross-examination that the state would be permitted to go into should he testify. And
Hey, Mallory.
the basic rule is when the defendant takes a stand, he waives his Fifth Amendment privilege as to matters to
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Testifies on direct and relevant matters subject to cross-examination. Your Honor has let in, over our objection, evidence under 404B of financial misconduct. And what we're asking is for an order excluding the state from being able to question Mr. Murdaugh on cross-examination matters related to the financial crimes that's been put before the court under Rule 404B if we don't testify about those on direct examination. And we need a ruling from the court at some point in time today before tomorrow. We're not putting them up today, but we're asking that we be able to advise him of what the state will be permitted to go into on cross-examination should he choose to testify.
Y'all, is he serious?
Adequately advise him and for him to adequately waive his right and his Fifth Amendment privilege and testify or not. And that's what we're
Would
asking.
you like for me to review with him at this time his right to testify or not testify?
Not at this point in time, Your Honor. We have to, we're trying to get a understanding from the court as to the parameters of the waiver of the privilege.
Okay. Now, I'm not an attorney, and y'all know this. However, it's my understanding that the way it works when you are the defendant, it's not the same as a witness. Okay, this is the defendant. Witnesses can assert their Fifth Amendment right if they're called to the witness stand and they say and they don't want to answer the questions. They can assert their Fifth Amendment right. However, by virtue of the way that our legal system works, okay, it's the defendant's choice whether or not they testify. So by choosing to not testify, the defendant is then asserting his or her Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and self-crimination and all the things, right? However, when the defendant gets up on the stand to testify, because it's a decision that they make, right? They waive that Fifth Amendment right. So trying to control the parameters of questioning is ludicrous. And let's continue. Here comes the state.
Is he waiving, if he testifies about the murders, is he then subject to cross-examination about the financial crimes?
Look at Alex. Alec, even he can't believe what's coming out of Jim's mouth right now. And the Poot is, I don't know where he is, but he has gone somewhere. He's gone to his happy place. Look, this is why I can't get too mad. I mean, like, listen, I get it. But but this is why the poop tickles me, because it's the faces that he makes. And I mean, like, I'm not saying that me and the poop would go to breakfast together. First of all, I don't really like breakfast unless it's for dinner. But he makes me laugh because he just mean bugs, and it just makes me laugh. All right, here we go.
That's what we're asking.
All right. Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. First of all, obviously the general rule is that cross is generally wide open, and that goes for a defendant who testifies. Your Honor, Rule 611B on the scope of cross-examination expressly says that a witness may be cross-examined on any matter relevant to any issue in the case. And of course, Your Honor has ruled through 404 and 403 the financial matters independently relevant. But the rule goes on to further say, including credibility. So even if that had not happened, these matters, which go right to the heart of the credibility and frankly the extensive dishonesty of this defendant, would be relevant if he took the stand anyway, regardless of the 404. So independently under that rule of the credibility aspect, it would be admissible under Rule 611B. But again, Your Honor has ruled these matters as relevant in the case, and so that clearly within the scope of cross. Your Honor, citing State v. Gilbert and Gleaton, 273 SC 690.
There you go, Jim. Just get right back to the highlights.
As I think the defense recognized, when the accused takes a stand on his own behalf, he waives his privilege against compulsory self-incrimination and must answer all proper questions. Your Honor, Taylor v. State, which I believe may have been overruled on other grounds.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That was
when
really
an appellant
sweet.
elected to testify, he waived his right against self-incrimination and became subject to cross-examination like any other witness. And then finally, citing the U.S. Supreme Court, Brown v. U.S. 356 U.S. 148, it says it's talking about a defendant in a criminal case.
Mr. Waters is over here just laying it down. Thank you so much, Mallory. I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
It says if he takes the stand and testifies in his own defense, his credibility may be impeached and his testimony assailed like any other witness. And the breadth of his waiver is determined by the scope of relevant cross-examination. He has no right to set forth to the jury all the facts which tend in his favor without lying himself open to a cross-examination on those facts. Those are the general and well-established rules, Your Honor, and they're particularly relevant in this case. And so we believe that those financial matters would be well within the scope of this particular matter and authorized by the rules in the case law.
Mr. Griffin.
Yeah, just briefly, Your Honor, with regard to credibility, the rules are pretty strict as to what evidence of criminal conduct can be used to impeach a witness's credibility, and there are limited to convictions. And that's Rule 609. Your Honor has let the financial evidence in under theory of motive, and you've done a 403 weighing test. And Your Honor, I think when you get to cross-examination of a defendant, I think Your Honor has discretion under Rule 403 to prohibit the state from further inquiry in this case on the.
Hey, Modine. Hey, everybody coming in. I was wondering when you would chime in, Modine. I was waiting for you. Crap. Oh, that's right. This is when the unfortunate audio situation happened. And literally the chat over in Law and Creme was just like, I'd hope they'd fixed it, but guess not. I don't know what he's arguing here. All right, so Mo says AM can take the stand to testify to his AM can take stand to testify to his team. When cross-examination starts, just say, I won't answer those questions. The judge can only hold him in contempt and send him to jail. He is already in jail. Well,
aspects of truthfulness and untruthfulness, which is clearly
we're
goes
going
to
to
as well
discuss that.
608C, which talks about bias, prejudice, and any motive to misrepresent. And again, we're not just talking about purely dishonesty and credibility, which I think is alone more than enough. We're also talking about examination on issues that are specifically relevant to this particular case based on the 404 ruling.
Rule 607, Rule 608, particularly the portion of 608, see evidence of bias, prejudice, or any motive to misrepresent may be shown to impeach the witness, either by examination of the witness or by evidence otherwise deduced. Rule 6 11 and 609 also addresses the issue. I am not going to issue an order in advance limiting the scope of cross-examination. Any objectionable matter must be addressed as the evidence is presented and not based on any advance ruling by the court.
Your Honor,
Jim, he said what he said.
the request for the ruling is not an evidentiary ruling. It's the scope of his privilege. And so would he be permitted to assert the fifth, for example, if they're permitted to ask questions such as they intend to on cross? And that's,
I can't give you any advisory opinions about the evidence and the scope of cross-examination, the scope of his privilege. I'm willing to review with him the scope of his privilege against self-incrimination, if that's what you're referring to.
we will certainly need to have that colloquy at some point at the end of the day, perhaps. But
for the court to issue some blanket order limiting the scope of cross-examination, that's unheard of to me.
I got to rewind.
Again, Your Honor, I'm not, the question is, end of the day, perhaps.
Review with him the scope of cross-examination.
That's,
I can't give you any advisory opinions about the evidence and the scope of cross-examination, the scope of his privilege. I'm willing to review with him the scope of his privilege against self-incrimination, if that's what you're referring to.
we will certainly need to have that colloquy at some point at the end of the day, perhaps. But
for the court to issue some blanket order limiting the scope of cross-examination, that's unheard of to me.
again, Your Honor, I'm not, the question is the scope of the waiver of his privilege when he gets on that witness stand. That's what we're asking for, not an evidentiary rule.
Mr. Waters has some cases there that I assume he'd like for me to look at, and if you do, I'd be happy to look at what you have as well. Anything else?
Okay. I'm sorry. I know it's not funny and I shouldn't be laughing, but it is kind of funny because, like, geez, what is he thinking is going to happen? Look, here's the deal. First of all, Jim, stop playing with these people out here. You know damn right well Alec is not going to get up there and testify. I mean, maybe he will. He can take the stand against the advice of his attorneys. That is true. Okay. And to Mo's point, here's the deal. Sure, he can get up there and he can refuse to answer questions, right? But doing so would likely diminish any credibility he had with the jury. They're not going to understand it. They're not. Most people are of the opinion that if you have nothing to hide, you hide nothing, right? The thing about Alec is he's got two other cases he's pending. He's got the financial crimes, and then he's got the conspiracy situation with good old cousin Eddie. So, but at the same time, his team is in a conundrum here. For one thing, you have the video, the kennel video. That is irrefutable. And the only person who can explain to the jury why he is out at the kennels at that time and why he has been staunchly denying the fact that he was out there at those kennels at that time, at all that night after dinner. Alec is the only person that can explain that. The problem is once if he gets to explain, the prosecution gets to ask some questions. The other problem is because of well, no. Okay, let me just finish my thought and then I'll answer you. Oh my gosh, Charlie. Hey babe, how are you? Good to see you. How's your sis? Thank you so much. All right, let me get back to my point. My point is this. Not only is that situation occurring, but because of Jim and his way of questioning, Eddie Curtis Smith came in, and so did the roadside shooting. And they just played a whole audio tape of Alec admitting that he's a lying liar face who tells lies. There's no other way to put that. That bell for the jury cannot be unrung. All right? What you don't want to do, it is a total loss for the defense. It would be asinine at this point for them to put Alec on the stand. Point blank, period. That's it. The end. It would be a ridiculous move. They've got their own client on audio admitting that he's a lying liar face who tells lies. The only reason to put your client up on the stand is because it's mainly like self-defense cases, and this case maybe, if not for that audio. If that audio hadn't come in, I would say, man, roll the dice. What you got to lose? Take your chances. But because that audio came in and you've got Alec admitting it and apologizing for being a lying liar face who tells lies, hell no. It would be ridiculous for him to get up on the stand. Ridiculous. It is a total loss for the defense. Alec would do much better just sitting there in that chair, mean mugging and gobbling up Tic Tacs like Pac-Man and Power Pellets. Seriously. Oh, wow. Okay, Aries, stay safe. Yeah, but okay. He doesn't have to answer any of the questions, really. He can get up there and be a total butt if you really want to know the truth. Can he do that? Yes. We're not talking about what he can do. We're talking about what he should do. Like, I can go and up to somebody at Walmart and, kick him in the shin. But should I? No. That's the point. Sure, get up there and refuse to answer questions about the finances. Sure, and leave it in the hands of the jury after you've already admitted on tape that you're a lying liar mouth who tells lies. No, this would be a huge mistake. That's my opinion. However, should this fool be foolish enough to get up on that stand, yo girl will be right there, mouth open, jaw on the floor, watching every single second of it. And then I will come live and we will talk about every single second of it. Okay? Okay, Mo. All right. Hey, Backyard Garden. Now, listen, I respect your opinion. You think they're going to win. I think that it would be a huge mistake. And there you go. We'll see how it goes. I mean, I'm not going to get all pressed about it because at the end of the day, it doesn't really impact me. I mean, I'm watching it with you guys, but I don't have a dog in this fight. I want justice for the victims in this case. But I recognize that nothing I say or do is going to get them justice. So I'm going to cover it and we're going to talk about it and we're going to, debate it and whatnot. And that'll be the end of it. Exactly. It would be a mistake. It would be a huge mistake. Of course I will be here. And I can't promise y'all. Now listen, I did get a couple of one comment on the roast. And I don't think that the person who wrote it, I think, intended it to be constructive criticism, which I always appreciate. But I don't think that they understood that it's a roast, which is where, essentially I just make fun of people, right? I mean, that's what it is. But I cannot promise that if he takes the stand and says something outlandish, I cannot promise that I can exercise restraint. I will try, but I cannot promise. I'm going to try. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. All right. Now, let's get to them bringing in the jury and the first witness. This is something I want to say too before I forget, because this has been bothering me for a couple of days. And I haven't here, you guys are terrible. Look at you guys encouraging me to not exercise restraint. This has been bugging me for a couple of days. All right. Well, not really a couple of days, just yesterday because Buster, but it feels like forever. When Buster said that in 2018, which is interesting, that year, that 2018 is also the year that Gloria Satterfield died. But when he said that around Christmas time that Alec went to detox, okay, this is what I find astounding, and that a couple of times he detoxed at home. How is it that nobody knew? I mean, I suppose because, the family name was on the law firm, it's possible that maybe he just worked out going to detox around like the Christmas, the weekend between Christmas and New Year's. Maybe, I don't know. But I just find it really difficult to, I can't fathom that somebody wouldn't notice. Detox, even a medical detox, is not easy. And you're not the same person going in or coming out as you are going in. Obviously, that's the point. It's not a full rehab. Like, you're not getting, the whole 30-day experience with, therapy and getting down to the root of why you're self-medicating, right? It's just exactly what it sounds like. But I've seen people who've after they've left detox and they don't even look like the same person. I mean, obviously, but you can tell. And I'm just so shocked that he was surrounded by all these people and nobody. Okay, keep us updated, Aries. I appreciate that. I just find it shocking, quite frankly, and honestly, a little unbelievable that nobody freaking saw this. So, all right. Now, I skipped a little too far forward with the introductions, but let me just say, this is, oh, bless it. Why is his name escaping me? One of the partners from the law firm, known Alex for 34 years. Now, the reason that he is on the stand, and I'm going to tell you all this because, we have a lot to go through tonight, and, so I can't watch every little minute of it. But, but anyway, this witness is on here, which is very interesting. The defense put him up because he is there to talk about SLED and the way that the investigation was handled from jump, because he was there that night. And he's going to do a little bit of impeaching of Blanca, just a little. And then, but there are some parts that he backs Blanca up. So I'm going to be right back. I've got to let the pupster out. And, oh yeah, and 5, 6, 7, 8. He had no No, he had none of that. He did not go through a traditional arraignment process and none of that. No handcuffs, no orange suit, and his mugshot looks like a class photo. Let's be honest. That's what it looks like. All right. So I'm going to push play and we're going to hear what this gentleman has to say, whose name escapes me. I'm going to let the dog out and I'll be right back.
Sort of the maintenance side of fire and rescue, and they had come across the radio that there were 2 dead. So I suspected that Paul and Maggie had passed away. So when I got there,
Any motive to misrepresent.
have never left.
Bruh,
Just
How
mostly
long
civil.
have you been a lawyer?
I want to
How you
start.
doing?
Jesus.
Doing great.
I'm over it. All right. I'm leaving it alone. I'll be back. Hey, Melissa Jade. Good to see you. Hey, Renee. All right. I'll be right back.
Mark Ball, B-A-L-L.
Mr. Ball, will you tell the jury a little bit about yourself? Where you from? What do you do?
I'm a lawyer in Hampton. I practice with the Parker Law Group now. I've lived in Hampton for 20 plus years. I now live in Rum Gully here in Colleton County. Have for about 8 years, 9 years. I practice
How
mostly civil
long
law.
have you been a lawyer?
33 years
And where were you born and raised?
in Ballantyne, South Carolina, up above Columbia, about 20 miles.
And when did you move down to this part of the state?
I started with the law firm 34 years ago. I moved down. I was a law clerk at first and have never left since 1988.
Do you know the defendant, Alec Murdaugh?
I do,
How long have you known him?
34 years.
And did you practice law together?
We did, about 20 something.
Did you become personal friends of his?
Yes, I mean,
And were your family friends with his family?
yes, our children grew up together, as did everybody in the firm.
And your wife, Lisa, would she become good friends with Maggie?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the, do you remember the evening of June the 7th,
I do very well.
2021?
Yes.
How did you learn about the tragic murders of Maggie and Paul?
It was about 10:30 and one of my partners, Ronnie Crosby, tried to call my phone, and before I could get to it, he called my wife's phone, and he said, give me, hand mark the phone, and he said Maggie and Paul had been shot and get over there. And so I scrambled and got over there. I live about 8 or 10 miles from there. I live over in Rum Gully, and that's Moselle.
And why did you go over there?
To find out what was going on, to, see what I mean, we're out in the middle of, nowhere, and, somebody calls you and says your law partner's, wife and child have been shot, you go. I mean,
And who did you go with?
I went with my wife, Lisa.
And when you got there, who was on the scene? Do you recall?
Yeah, I came in by the cabin, what's referred to as the cabin side of it. And there was ambulance was pulled up next to what I would call the hangar building. It was pulled up there, and then Barry McRoy's vehicle, he drives a SUV of some type. And then there was a police car pulled off to the right-hand side, probably 50 yards before you get to them, and I pulled in right behind them on the left hand or the right-hand side of the driveway coming in, and then walked over.
Will you remind the jury who Barry McCoy is?
Barry McRoy is the chief of the fire and rescue here in Colleton County.
So when you arrived, I think so Barry McCoy was present?
He was there. He was standing there speaking with a deputy, and there were 2 EMT paramedics standing over near their ambulance.
And when you pulled into the, I guess the lower driveway by the cabin, had any roadblocks or barriers been put up to stop cars from coming in there?
None. I got there about 10:50, 10:52, something like that.
Did you have a conversation with any law enforcement officers about the need to block the entrance?
I did eventually. I was talking to Barry about, I had found out just before I got there, somebody had called me and they work with sort of the maintenance side of fire and rescue, and they had come across the radio that there were 2 dead. So I suspected that Paul and Maggie had passed away.
Okay. I just want to say this because I have to acknowledge it. I wouldn't be me if I didn't acknowledge both things. First of all, I have to acknowledge the fact that SLED extended an incredible amount of courtesy to Alec Murdaugh to the detriment of this case. And that's the truth. They treated him and his entire contact list that he called and subsequently arrived. They extended a courtesy that I know and you know and everybody in Colleton County and Hampton and everybody who's watched this trial thus far knows we would not get. That would never happen. And unfortunately, it was to the detriment of this case. And no, I shouldn't get any, I wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't expect it. But it was to the detriment of their case. And I think it's interesting that what they have him up on the stand to testify about, and how, yeah, it's all just, no, they shouldn't have, Mo. They should never have extended him that courtesy. They shouldn't have. They really shouldn't have. But I was thinking about it today because I was listening to this testimony while I was in the shower. Oh, Renee, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. I was listening to this part of the testimony today when I was in the shower. And let me just tell you, I get some of my best ideas when I'm in the shower. And I think much clearer. Maybe it's all the lotions and potions. I don't know, but I digress. Anyway, and I was listening to this and I was thinking, the more he spoke about SLED, the more irritated that I got, because there's going to come a part up in here, okay, that he testifies to, where he's doing it now. He's starting it now. He's laying out all the concerns that he has, right? All the concerns, right? But then he does something that is the antithesis of all those concerns. And it just irritated the heck out of me. And I even had a whole moment in the shower. I was like, what? I had a whole WTF. So I just felt like the whole situation that occurred was frustrating. What they should have done, like I said before, is it should have treated this scene exactly like it was. The entire property should have become a crime scene. None of those people should have made it on that property at all. At all. All right, here we go. I'm going to speed him up a little bit, just to 1.25, because I want to hear what he has. I want to talk about what he has to say, but we got a lot of other people we have to get to today. So
When I got there, I was talking to Barry and asking him some questions. I could see Randy kind of through the alleyway between the dog kennel and the sort of wing shed that comes off of the hangar. And then Buddy Hill, the sheriff, came over, and then I spoke with him.
Yes, Will be. That was interesting to me, particularly who works where now.
Said, I need to get this blocked off. And I think he took a phone call or something. And I walked back to tell my wife what was going on. And I saw another deputy coming in. So I walked out to the head of the road there and I said, I think the sheriff wants this blocked off. And then I walked back to where Barry McRoy was. And then
Did that entrance get blocked off?
no,
What happened?
people just kept piling in. I mean, it was just more and more people kept showing up.
Roughly how many cars do you think piled in?
I don't know because shortly thereafter I walked around to the other side, but there were a good many. When I walked back over there an hour and a half later, there were a good many cars over there.
When you say you walked around the other side, I don't think we need a diagram, but just tell the jury what you're talking about.
Well, there's a dog pen. From where I was standing, the dog pen would be to the left. The aircraft hangar with two wing sheds coming off of it would be directly in front of me. There's a skinning shed that would be to the far right. And then directly across from the hangar shed, probably 50 or 60, 75 yards, would be another storage shed, equipment shed. And so I walked down.
And you know what else I was thinking when I was in the shower today too? How would they have reacted? How would Alec and all of his 11 billion lawyer friends have reacted had they shut it down? What if when these people up, they turned away, saw their friend Alec in the back seat of a cop car? How would they have reacted? Because there's part of me that feels like if that in this situation, law enforcement was going to be damned if they do and damned if they don't. You know what I mean? I still personally, I would have, if it had been me and I was running things, I would have been like, too bad, so sad. Who gets what you get and you don't throw a fit. You want me to solve this crime? You need to get you and your friends. I'm put you over here. You just sit down and don't call nobody else. This ain't a party. Don't be inviting people over. And all y'all that are here, y'all gonna have to leave. When we're done doing what we need to do to secure this crime scene and to do what we need to do and process it and all that, we'll let you know. Okay? That's what I would have done, but they didn't ask me. Oh, did it go choppy? Sorry. But that's what I would have done, but they didn't ask me.
Down almost to where the skinning shed was and then back around in front of the far shed, the equipment shed.
So you did not walk directly between the shed and the kennels?
No, sir.
You walked around the shed?
Correct.
Before you walked around the shed, did you stand and observe what was happening within the taped off area?
I did. I mean, people were walking between the dog pen and the law enforcement and responders had walked between the two areas, the wing shed and the dog kennel. And I could see where Paul was, but he was covered up. Barry covered him up.
And what was the weather?
It was misty. It wasn't really raining, but it was one of those kind of foggy days or nights that it's more than just a fog. You get wet. And eventually it got where it would drizzle off and on. And later on, it didn't rain hard, but it was intermittently sprinkle in that kind of floating heavy fog.
Did you make any observations about water coming off the roof of the kennel?
I did later on when I got around to that side.
Okay, what observations did you make?
Eventually the water was running off. That dog kennel is built with a small cantilever on the front of it and then a longer part off the back. And water was dripping off of the front of the shed where Paul was.
Was water landing on Paul?
It was.
And could you see where the water would then accumulate after it landed on Paul?
It would drain off. There's a cement apron right there in the front of that feed room. And there was water there. There was water in the gravel to some degree. The grass was wet. I mean, it wasn't raining so hard that, you couldn't just stand there without an umbrella, but it was drizzling enough that you were getting wet.
And the fact that you observed water dripping off the roof onto Paul's body, did that concern you?
It did. It did.
Why?
Well, one, I didn't think that, it's a crime scene.
Hey, Lolo.
just water dripping all over the place. But more importantly, I thought it was pretty disrespectful. I mean, Paul was a good young man, and I, quite frankly, it just pissed me off.
I understand. Did you have a conversation with anyone about trying to prevent that?
I don't think I did about that aspect of it, but it was, I just thought that they should have put a tarp or something. I mean, just out of.
Now, I also find this interesting as I'm listening back to it, but now I have not had an occasion, thankfully, to be anywhere where it's an active crime scene. Okay. But I cannot imagine being at an active crime scene and suggesting things to the law enforcement about what they should or should not be doing. I'm very lucky. And I find that interesting because I just don't, hey, far away eyes. Let me see. I kind of think, listen, I find it interesting, his behavior. Maybe, and I can't relate to it. I am a very, very private person. When something serious is going on with me, I don't really share. It's very hard to, even to my ward girls, to Shmita and Dr. B and Mo and Sam and Team Psych Ward, those are my besties. Those are my family. And they'll tell you sometimes it's hard, sometimes I will just close off. I've gotten better about it now, but as far as, I don't know that I would call that many people. You know what I mean? I think people, a crowd of people in a lot of ways would be a distraction. I know that it's not the same thing. My mom was not murdered. She died of a massive heart attack. She was very, very young and it was completely unexpected. She wasn't sick or anything like that. But for me, I was always, and I know people that when they come and they offer their condolences, they're doing it because they care. And, but for me, I always felt like I kind of ended up sort of having to comfort everybody else. And I just sort of, I don't know. That's just not how I roll. And so it's difficult for me to understand. It's not about, this isn't a guilt or an innocence thing, Mo. This is just me not understanding why you would want 11 billion people there. I'm a very private person. So that part of it, I cannot understand. I also don't think that I would want people to see my loved one that way. It was a gruesome scene. I think I probably would call, one or two people who are, like super close to me. But that's it. I just wouldn't want people seeing there. Oh, maybe. I'm just saying I can't understand it. It doesn't actually mean anything one way or another. I just thought it was odd that he just called all of these people. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. All right. It's just odd to me. I feel like I wouldn't, if it were, I wouldn't want people to see my loved one that way. And just for reference, if it were me and I were the person laying there like that, I wouldn't want a bunch of people looking at me that way either. In fact, I don't even want, like, when I pass away, I don't need, have a funeral or whatever, but I don't want an open casket. I don't want people coming and gawking. And that's how it feels to me. That's just me.
Respect.
Right.
They eventually did with Maggie put what I would call a tailgating tent, very similar to the media tents that are out front, those little lightweight, and they put that over Maggie. They never did over Paul, at least while
And that's another thing. Most people in that type of situation don't call. They don't know what to do. So they don't actually call anybody. But he called his entire ass contact list. It's just weird to
I
me.
was
That's
there.
all.
When you walked around the shed to get on the other side, who was on the other side?
Well, I could see through the alleyway between the dog kennels and that wing shed coming off of, if you were standing in front of the aircraft hangar, it'd be the right-hand side where Maggie was. I could see Randy over there and Alec. Alec much more infrequently, but Randy was on the phone
Yes, Leslie. I don't know.
walking, and I could see him. I think he and I got there
Just
about the
too
same time.
much.
He did come through the main gate.
When you got up, what did you get up to greet Alec?
I did. When I walked around,
Honestly, he's just so extra for me, and I find it a little bit unnerving. That's all. He's just extra.
Alec met me about halfway where that equipment shed is. Alec came, as soon as he saw me coming up through there, he met me about halfway in front of that shed and just went to pieces. He's Alec's 6'4", 6'5", whatever he is, and I'm 5'9". He pretty well smothers you when he hugs you. And
What was his demeanor?
He was devastated. I mean, he was crying. He was, I mean, just beside himself. And I told him we'd get through it. And go ahead.
Yeah, eventually did SLED arrived on the scene?
He did, but while Alec was,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You heard right.
you know, I'm trying to console him and patting him on the back, and he said, "Look at what they did. Look at what they did to them." I mean, just right off the bat.
So during that initial encounter with Alec, he referred to they with what they did. Is that correct?
Yeah, they, which I didn't really think about at the time until I was taking my wife home. I just thought it was an odd comment.
It is an odd
The
comment.
SLED arrived sometime later.
All right, so let me just long and the short of it, okay? What happened was eventually they all make their way back from the kennels back towards the house where everybody gets some stiff drinks. He helps account for some of the firearms. He did a little bit of straightening up. Although he has been to Moselle many, many times, he wasn't exactly, she assumed it was the master bedroom, stuff like that. And truth teller, you ain't never lied. You ain't never lied. He does have a good song. He does. And that's, maybe that's part of it for me, is that he does have such a really good, or had, maybe still, such a great support system. And he screwed every one of them over. I mean, this guy is working for the Parker Law Group, okay, which is formerly, I always want to spell PIMP, but I know that's not what it is. PMPD. They've had to do a lot of stuff. And this is the other thing I was thinking about today too, about him testifying. See, the thing of it is, Alec didn't just steal from the firm, right? That would have been one thing, bad enough. But what he did was he stole from the clients, okay? But he worked for the firm, putting them in legal jeopardy. And most of the people involved in the law firm at that time, they've all been, if not all of them, have been deposed already for the pending trial, right? The thing about a deposition is it's akin to testifying, right? But now he's actually testifying, and he's going to be on cross. They're going to ask him about the financial stuff, right? It's an interesting predicament because he's got to testify honestly, but also in the same way that he testified in the deposition. Like, he can't change anything up because it can be used at them. It can be used against him if he doesn't. You know what I mean? And I'm curious as to I really want to know more about this whole financial situation and, if the firm could potentially face any legal ramifications. So, all right, I'm going to skip forward a little bit.
So much to, it just didn't feel right looking at them.
Worked on that as well. Is that correct?
Correct. All over.
And
because this is,
couches there.
Look at Waters just leaned up there against that podium.
He was pretty good at hiding who he really was, wasn't he?
Obviously.
You known him for 34 years?
I knew him for 34 years, or I have known him for 34 years.
Y'all are pretty good friends?
Also.
Interacted?
Hey, April. Good to see you.
Many times a week?
We had his son Buster and my daughter were in school all the way from kindergarten on, and I would see him at work.
Well, and as we know from the jail calls, right, he was trying to liquidate stuff and sell things off, and in an effort, it appears, to keep it from his debtors, which is whatever.
Early on, he didn't work for us immediately when he came out of law school. He worked for Jim Moss and Moss and Coon. And then he came to us about 5 or 6 years after that.
But you shared a business with him for how long?
Probably 20 some odd years.
He was your partner?
He was a partner.
You trusted him?
You have to. And I did.
And outwardly, to your appearance, he was a good lawyer. He was a partner to you. He was someone you could trust and rely on, wasn't it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first
Outwardly, from what you observed.
Yes, sir.
He was a good partner. He was a good lawyer. He was someone in part of your business, somebody that you could trust and rely on. Is that true?
Yes, he was.
And outwardly, you thought that he had a good relationship with his family. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But you have just testified that you didn't really know this man, did you?
Obviously, I did not. I mean, had we known the things he was doing, we wouldn't have been law partners.
You were asked about the kennel video.
Yes, sir.
And you've had a chance to review that kennel video.
A couple of times.
And you and I have talked quite a few times. Is that correct?
We have. I didn't see the kennel video until probably a month or two ago.
But you've reviewed it here recently. Is that correct?
I have several times.
All right. And any doubt in your mind that Alec Murdaugh, Maggie, and Paul were on that kennel video at 8:44 p.m. on June 7th, 2021?
None.
No doubt in your mind.
No doubt.
Do I need to play it for you again, or no doubt in your mind?
I played it all the way here.
Well, let's talk about that just a little bit. And we'll talk more in some detail, but I want to go ahead and cover this. You saw Alec the night of the murders.
I did.
And you knew Maggie very well. You knew Paul very well.
I did.
And you went to the scene where Alec was. Is that right?
I did.
And did you even ride with Alec or take Alec back over to the
I'm
house?
pretty sure he rode back over to the house. I think he and Randy, because their vehicles were impounded over there.
And did you eventually, as things started to move forward, sit down on the couch with him back at the house?
I did.
Take yourself a liquor drink?
Probably a heavy one.
I get it. And did you talk to Alec about what he did that night?
I don't know whether it was, I know on the couch we talked, but I talked to him several times, including before the masses got there, as to trying to figure out, do you know anything? Do you have any idea who did this?
Because you were very concerned. You want to get to the bottom of this, right?
For a lot of reasons.
For a lot of reasons. For the family, for what happened to Maggie and Paul, for the law firm, for all the people involved.
All of it. And safety of, if it was something to do with him and the law practice, we didn't want somebody to show back up the front door and harm our folks. We didn't want them to harm any of the other lawyers' families. If it was some person that was deranged, we just didn't know. I mean, this isn't an ordinary occurrence in your practice of law.
You thought you were his buddy, been partners for 34 years. Y'all are sitting on the couch. Is that right?
Like family.
And you start talking to him. Is your questions appropriately?
He was.
Answer.
Hang on. I just want to highlight this comment. The thing is, when he was caught, he was in the middle of the scheme he always did and reset. If they had waited, he would have paid it back again. Well, maybe he would have paid the firm back, but he didn't pay his client. He stole from his clients too. And let's be honest, Mo, there wasn't going to be enough money for him ever to get around to what he did to the Sattler boys, and everybody else that that he stole from. He was he dug a hole that he couldn't get out of. He'd done it too many times. He was overextended. The bank was tired of his shenanigans. They were looking at these loans with no loan documents filled out. It wasn't going to last forever. It wasn't. He was going to get caught. And not only that, he didn't have it to pay back. He just didn't. He just didn't. And that's the truth. All right. So should we basically, this didn't go good for him either, because he gets on the, this is not a good help. He was not helpful to the defense. In some ways, he kind of started out being helpful to the defense in that he talked about SLED and, the way that the crime scene was handled or mishandled. And then he got up on cross, although he said that the scene was mishandled, but he also cleaned, picked up, which made no sense to me, but whatever. You already are like, you just arrived. You're already recognizing that that things are slipping through the cracks, and you're talking about blocking off the driveway so nobody else can come in, right? And you recognized immediately that the home would also technically potentially be a crime scene. It wasn't cleared. They didn't know if anybody was in there, if it was secure, as like it was safe, if the killer was hiding, you know what I'm saying? But you had all these concerns and whatnot, but you helped out and straightened up. Thanks for that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. So, it's not, and then when he gets up, and then when he's on cross, it doesn't go any better. He starts talking about the financial aspect of it and what Alec did and how he didn't know him, and how, when he got the news on September 4th that Alec had been shot, what he said was, this jackass has killed himself, or has this jackass tried to kill himself, something to that effect. But he called him a jackass, which made me laugh. And so then the next witness up is this Footwear tire tread mark impression guy. Hold on. Incredibly intelligent. Let's get to his Kali. Because I don't think they got into much of his testimony. Oh, what is the deal? Why is this? All right. We'll talk a little bit about him and then the cell phone guy.
Periphery or other area where there's just trace amounts.
Okay. And you work your way to the front, taking pictures as you spray?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, once you've finished that, are you done with the floor?
No, sir.
What's now? What do you do now?
You want to take overviews to show the work that you have done, right? And show any modifications that you made to the scene. And again, make the determination, can I take the area that prints on with me? If it was a tile floor, we could pull the tiles up. But again, because it's on concrete, we'd have to rely on the documentation.
And these are still 90-degree straight down shots?
That would be the analysis part. You would still take general photographs on an angle showing the relationship.
But as you work your way up and work your way back, those would be vertical. I mean,
yes, sir.
Okay.
Those
And then you're taking general photos from different angles.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then what?
With digital, you would make sure that the photos came out, that you had an image captured, and that it was sufficient for whose ever needs.
Okay, now
You would also take a sample of the blood from those areas for later typing or DNA analysis, should it be necessary.
Did you find any evidence that they took a sample of this blood and analyzed it?
No, sir.
So we surmise it's Paul's blood. It could be somebody else's blood there too.
Possible.
And the only way you could rule that out is to take samples.
Is to take a sample, do an analysis, and try to identify the donor.
And that was never done.
To the best of my knowledge, no, sir.
I don't know what his plan was
then,
that day,
we
Mo.
have,
I'm only telling you what his law
number of
partner
surfaces.
testified too.
Let me have them put up number 26, states 26. Okay, so, and just to cut to the chase, this is the door to the, well, I can see it a minute ago. There you go. That's the door to the feed room?
Yes, sir, the door frame on the right, door on the
Okay,
left.
did you see any evidence that they not dusted? That's
I think
full-time.
because
That they processed that door or any other surface in the feed room?
Not to the best of my
man, I don't know, maybe because somebody had to carry on the Murdaugh name. I don't know why he did any of the things he did, to be quite honest.
knowledge.
Now tell
None
the
of
jury,
his
please,
actions make sense
in a
to
summary
me.
fashion, what you would have done.
In a summary
First of all, you have
fashion,
to see a fingerprint before
hold on,
you
let me push
flip
pause.
it or whatever you call it.
Sure.
How do
In a summary fashion, that's poot for don't be long-winded. Hurry up, hurry
you
this
determine
along.
whether or not they're fingerprints you can't see? What do you do?
The base processing methods, again, depend on what technologies the agency has. The simplest and the oldest is dusting with contrasting color fingerprint powder by just applying it to the surface and dusting it through. If
Yeah, I saw that
contact with
Ron's
areas, the secretion
Vintage
fluid,
Electronics.
right,
They
use
want to
pattern
limit
lines.
the scope of
Those
the
latent fingerprints now
cross-examination.
become patent or visible.
Poppycock.
They can be lifted, they can be photographed. They also help tell you what was touched and how things were handled. So it would help in reconstruction as well.
That's the oldest technology there is, though, right? The throwing dust down, fingerprint dust.
At a crime scene, yeah.
Okay. I'm not talking about going into the lab and
No.
using super glue or whatever. Say at the crime scene.
Yes, sir.
What is the more modern? Do you use lights or do you use chemicals? What do you do at the scene?
The first method would be to use an alternate light source.
What does that mean?
I know
It could
he
be
is,
anything
but I
from
love it when
flashlight
he
held at an
tells,
oblique angle to see if you can find any
people
smudges or
to-
smears.
let's cut to the
More
chase. It
sophisticated portable
makes me
laser
laugh.
units, right? Laser is an acronym for a light source that produces a wavelength of light at a very specific number. The more common today are called the alternate light sources. These are various colored lights, and usually they're light emitting diodes or LEDs at different
Okay.
wavelengths of light. So not with a pair of glasses that are filtered.
I
They
appreciate
shift.
but can you get to the point?
Operations manual for SLED, right? And the letter that I just referred to as far as the origin of some of the photographs.
So you have not read all the records in this case?
Correct.
I can't figure out
You
where
don't
to.
know who Laura wrote.
No, sir, I don't.
I
Would it
went
be
too
in-
far.
Their lab. If there's an acronym,
The current acronym is ANAB.
I don't understand what
It's the American Board
found out. I'm looking for the results.
sandals.
That's all I want to
that,
listen.
Miss
Hold
Murdaugh.
on, let me see if I can find
Maggie
it.
was wearing. How about these? Their Maggie shoes walking over the other footprints or with over other footprints walking over her footprints?
If those are from Maggie Sandals, they're on top of the other ones, but they're also going into rows, and some are superimposed over the other.
When you say, okay, let me ask the question this way. Are Maggie's imprints on top of the other imprints or are they on top of hers?
Area appear, yes. And in the area in which they appeared, the answer is yes,
Yes.
they were. They were made there after, right?
Are they on top of Maggie's?
No, Maggie's are on top.
Okay, so the other imprints were there and Maggie walked on top of them.
Apparently, yes.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Now,
I don't think that's what he wanted that testified to.
see if save this in here.
Thank you, Rons. I appreciate that. Anytime. I love chatting about true crime.
Well, you have also reviewed the SWED procedures manual, correct? Parts of it.
In brief, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, and let me ask you this. There's certain certifications different labs receive, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the certification SWED receives for their lab, if there's an acronym?
The current acronym is ANAB, A-N-A-B.
Okay.
It's the American Board of ANA Accreditation. I forget the last word.
Okay.
But it's a pickup from an older accreditation program that was run under the ASCLD program, the American Society of Crime Lab Director.
And tell me just briefly how that accreditation program works.
A laboratory or a crime scene unit can apply to an organization for its national, actually it's international, accreditation, which means that they're meeting a minimum criteria and minimum expectations.
Yeah, I don't
from the parent
understand
body,
his point,
right?
because
So
I don't
formal
think it's
recognition,
sounding like a good
technically, that you're doing
idea.
a good job, or at least your procedures are well written. The operation manual that I started reviewing was very thorough, was very well written, easy to understand, but it involves everything from how evidence is processed in the agency, what the responsibilities of the different people are, including the director of the laboratory, the basic procedures and operation of the lab itself, or the crime scene unit. If it's involved in a police department that may not have a formal laboratory. The accreditation is well recognized across the country, and
so they certify that you're meeting the standards, basically.
that you're following the guidelines that you put, and your guidelines meet a minimum standard, yes.
Okay. So, and have you ever performed these analysis? Have you ever been appointed or assigned by this group to do this?
Yes, sir.
To look
Under
at,
ASCLD, the precursor to ANAB, I was also one of their auditors, and we would go to different laboratories. In fact, I did the Columbia Sheriff's Department a number of years ago.
Richmond County, I'm sorry,
Yes,
Sheriff's
sir.
Department.
I forget it.
So you're very familiar with what the standards are.
Yes, sir.
In reviewing what this file and these pictures and documents, was SLED following the procedures that are required by that certification? On this case,
I don't
What I
understand.
had for procedures were their operation manual, how to run the laboratory.
They made the defense made such a big deal about this guy that was going to testify. I'm assuming this is who they're talking about, or they were talking about, and I find it to be underwhelming. I mean, basically, he's saying that SLED didn't do their jobs correctly, which I think most people would agree with. Most people would acknowledge the fact that, unfortunately, because they treated Alec with courtesy, a more courtesy than they would extend to the average person because of who he was, it was to the detriment of this case. I don't think there's any disagreement about that. I don't know why they're hiring this guy, which I don't understand. It's not that I don't think this guy knows what he's talking about, or that he's smart, or that he's, not qualified. I think that he is. I just don't understand. I don't understand the purpose of what he's doing for them in this trial. Underwhelming. Oh no, Emily. Stay safe, babe, and warm. But he didn't testify to that there were extra footprints. Mo, that's the problem. I understand what he was hired to do, but you only can work with what you got. Footprints, shoe prints, shoe impressions. I get it, but I don't think he came up with anything new. Stay warm, babe. I'll be thinking of you. Hey, if you need anything, my email's in the about section and I check it all the time. So if you need anything, let us know and we'll try to see what we can do to help. Okay. I don't know. I just thought this was underwhelming. And to be quite honest, I thought the next witness I thought he started out good, but then not so much. But the cross-exam was fun. So I'm going to play that for us. I did the wrong thing. All right, let's try this.
Is Philip still with us?
States Exhibit 520 and go to page.
No, wait. I went too far.
Okay.
105.5.
Near the feed room door.
All right, here we go.
566. Consistent with this.
All right, I'll be right back. You guys behave. I'll be in the chat so I can see if you don't. All right, here we go.
Do you remember a minute ago when Mr. Harpootlian asked you about states 195?
Yes, sir.
That's what I'm trying to say,
And it's
Heather.
important
All right, I'll be right
When
back.
these
You guys
footprints-
behave.
Yes, sir.
And you know who first saw those footprints?
No, sir.
You don't. That's right. It's Laura Rutland. Would it have been important to you to come in and you're basically second guessing the Colleton County Sheriff's Department, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division? Well, you're being paid to come in and say they did a bad job, aren't you?
I even qualified that answer. Depending on the limitations of their skill sets, depending on the limitations of equipment that they have and their training, they may have done the best job they could.
But you're second guessing the Colleton County Sheriff's Department and SLED and saying they did a bad job, didn't you?
With that particular image,
Well, no, you've said it about the whole thing.
Have you finished your answer? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
are you referring to this image or the
Right now,
entire?
okay, yes.
As far as that picture goes, it's a good general overview documentation of an area without additional photographs, which I know there are. There were 4 in the series, if I'm not mistaken. Right. It does show this area in concert with a portion of the crime scene. That can be equated back to one of the diagrams that was prepared. This particular picture is a medium close-up showing a particular area, as I tried to explain with the photography, showing multiple images and how they relate to one another. The other photograph would show how it relates to the scene. The part that's missing are the macro or the close-up photographs showing the detail of the images, so that should a pair of shoes or article of footwear be available, they could then be directly compared and analyzed and either included or excluded from consideration in the case.
And if you had a witness, let me just ask, if you're giving an opinion up here and evaluating the crime scene, wouldn't you want to know if there was a witness who saw this image when they were just the sandals on it? Wouldn't you want to know that if you were evaluating, second guessing whether law enforcement did a good job? Wouldn't you want to know that?
It would be helpful, but that's not what I was presented with.
You weren't even presented with that.
I was presented with a photograph and asked to interpret what's there.
But if there's a witness who said, I saw those and they were just those sandal prints and nothing else there, you'd want to know that.
First off, I'm not an investigator. I don't do interviews. I don't talk to people about what they did or saw. As a scientist, you evaluate the information that you're given to work with insofar as possible. These images have very limited value for analysis. How they got there, I don't know. An article of footwear came in contact with that surface, as I explained, and left an impression, a 3-dimensional image. As far as who was there, how many people walked through, I don't know. I was not at the scene at the time of the incident, nor have I ever been to the crime scene.
You've never even been in the crime scene.
Correct.
I mean, isn't that important if you're going,
Not for the limited purpose that I was asked to look at the evidence. And as the time had elapsed, there's no way to go back to a scene that occurred 2 years ago and try to interpret evidence that probably no longer exists.
will you just please answer this one question?
Yes, sir.
If there was information from an individual who saw this scene on June 7th, 21, that when she saw it, there were nothing but the sandal prints and nothing else, wouldn't you want to know that?
Again, as a scientist, I can only deal with what's put in front of me. I avoid witness statements because of their unreliability.
An eyewitness who said, I just saw sandals, you wouldn't want to know that.
I would not care.
Would you care
I'm
if I
looking-
could do this, a beat cop? If you just saw sandals yourself?
I was not a scientist at that point. I was not subject to bias, accusations, all right, and undue influence from others.
You talking about Mr. Harpootlian or me?
Both.
Okay. And the reason I'm following up on that, and I wasn't clear, Mr. Harpootlian said, were these over other imprints or over it? They're actually over each other. The sandals are over themselves, the imprints,
I
right?
said that, yes.
Okay. Well, it wasn't clear. You're not saying they were over these other.
Mr. Meadows, it was clear to me, it was clear to everybody else. in the court.
I also stated that they're on top.
Objection is sustained.
Objection.
Objection is sustained. It's examination by the council. Cross-examination, not direct examination.
And finally, on this topic, Mr. Harpootlian said that these photos were taken on June 7th of 2021, and that's what you thought, correct? That's what you were provided.
The appearance from the letter that was, I believe, attached to those images gave that indication, yes.
Okay. And did it say what? Beg court's no. They were actually taken on June 8th, 2023, later that day. Did you know that?
Apparently, the person who authored the letter authenticating the photograph was inaccurate.
Mr. Two was March States 565, Mr. Xerxes.
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize those?
Yes, sir, I do.
Your Honor, without objection, 565.
No objection, Your Honor.
Admitted without objection.
Now, Mr. Xerxes, looking at, I think it states 139, and this now states 565, using common sense, are those consistent with this?
Nature of objection.
He's an
The
expert
legal
witness.
basis for the
The legal basis is he's applying the wrong standard, common sense. He's a scientist. He can make a comparison scientifically.
The objection is overruled.
In general pattern design, this pair of sandals possibly made the smooth imprints that appear in the picture. However, I cannot tell you size, right, or individual patterns, as the images here, again, were not recorded properly, if that's what they were. There are similarities to basic pattern design to these shoes.
And you'd have said that, I'm sorry, you'd have said that as a beat cop 40 years ago, and same thing right now today, wouldn't you?
Except now I have to do it as an expert witness, which is much different.
You're getting paid a lot more.
Yes, sir.
How much are you getting paid now?
The base fee was $350 an hour,
I'm sorry?
$350 an hour.
That's the base.
Yes, sir.
You get paid for travel?
Yes, sir.
How much?
This time, strictly the airfare.
Okay, you don't get paid while you're traveling?
No, I'm not charging for time.
You usually do?
Again, depends on the circumstances.
And you know I gotta ask this.
That's okay.
Do you get paid more for sitting in that chair than you do for not being? Inside the courtroom, testimony costs more than outside?
It's the same fee.
$350.
It's a basic 10-hour charge for testimony.
And how many hours have you logged so far?
Total 20 plus today and, the travel. But I'm not charging for the travel time.
And is there extra charge for the PowerPoint?
No, sir. It's all part of the examination.
Oh, what's the poot doing? He's over there shuffling papers. What origami is he making today? Oh, it's not the poot. It's the other guy shuffling papers. Wonder what origami he's making. I get frustrated at the shuffling of the papers.
There are multiples of the same. Some are multiples of the same print.
I'm going to show you
Oh,
what's
I know
marked.
the answer to this.
States 559 and 558, Mr. Xerxes.
Okay, so this is how it works, truth teller. When Alex's dad passed away, he got an inheritance, and that inheritance went into a trust for him. And so he petitioned the trust, and they deemed that they would pay the lawyers out of the trust because it was for his general well-being. And that's how it worked. Bless it, Poot.
So do you recognize those?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Your Honor, 558 and 559 without objection?
Without objection, Your Honor.
They admit it.
560 and 561, Mr. Xerxes, do you recognize those?
Yes, sir.
Your Honor, 560 and 61 without objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
They admit it.
Poot's over there trying to get Alex to
564.
unask some of them Tic Tacs because he's hungry.
Yes, sir, I do.
564 without objection, Your Honor?
They admit it.
566,
Yes, sir.
and you're saying yes, sir, that means you recognize them. And
Yes, sir.
566 without objection,
Without objection, Your Honor.
and 557.
Yes, sir.
557 without objection, Your Honor.
Without objection.
All right. So basically,
Yeah,
this witness, honestly, I can't figure out what he really had to say other than that Sled didn't do a good job. Then the next witness they have up is it the caretaker? Is it Miss Libby's caretaker? Hold on. We'll be right back.
Of how frequent.
Hold on. And I like her.
Your Honor, I failed to put exhibit number 145 into evidence. Mr. Metters graciously has agreed to allow me to put it in at this point. Thank you.
No objection.
Offers into 145 into.
Submitted without objection.
Do I have to buy you dinner now?
Oh, Poot. You can buy me dinner, Poot. I ain't gonna. I don't
Ready
gotta
for the
eat
jury?
it with you, right? We don't have to eat together.
Bring them in.
Where's that at, Jenny? Do you have a timestamp for this stuff? Because it's hard for me to find it just scrolling like that. Let me see if I can find it. All right. Well, it's not going to be right here because this commercial.
They're out of order. Big portion, don't it? To the digital photos, and I think where they're in here, this is 38. It's got 105.1. You remember looking at these?
Yes, sir.
Is it right around
And
this?
105.2 and 105.3 inside the feed room.
Yes, sir.
And 105.5. $105.1 right here.
All right. Well, we'll keep it up.
Did she make that mark and put it on there? 105.1.
Yes.
Okay. And again, that's state 38. What'd she
Again,
say?
to the best of my knowledge, she
All
made
right.
that mark.
I'll rewind it.
Can have you.
He's an expert. I can ask an opinion.
Oh, it must be right here.
A sign. Tell me what we're looking at here.
Oh no, that's Poot. See, I don't. They took
Or
away
at least
the
your
whole.
procedures are well written. The operation manual that I started reviewing was very thorough.
Hold on.
It's very well written.
You used to be able to pull up, and it would show you.
With me?
Yes, sir.
Strictly what's on my computer,
You want to provide those to me?
if you wish.
He's entitled to reports, not his notes. He's not entitled to Brady. He's not entitled to anything but a report under Rule 5. And there is no such thing.
He just said if you wish. You just tell me I
I
can
didn't
have them.
ask for argument. The objection's overruled.
You said I can look at them?
They're not physically here, but whatever I have at another location, you're more than welcome to.
You said you have them
Thank
on
you,
the computer.
Jenny.
Not all the handwritten notes, right? Any of the documentation I was given was by virtue of digital copies.
Consistent with this.
It's the nature of the objection.
He's an
The
expert.
legal basis for the
The legal basis is he's applying the wrong standard, common sense. He's a scientist.
Ron,
He can make a
thank you
comparison
so
scientifically.
much.
The objection is overruled.
All right.
In general, right, or individual patterns, as the images here,
Really be
again,
here.
were not
This is where
recorded
he's in
properly.
the doorway. This
If that's
is
what
where
they
we're
were.
staying.
There are similarities to basic pattern design to these shoes.
Thank
If
you,
you'd have said that, and
Ron.
I'm sorry, you'd have said that as a beat cop 40 years ago and same thing right now today, wouldn't you?
Except now I have to do it as an expert witness, which is much different.
You're getting paid a lot more.
Yes, sir.
How much are you getting paid an hour?
The base fee was $350 an hour,
I'm sorry?
$350 an hour.
That's the base.
Yes, sir.
You get paid for travel?
Yes, sir.
How much?
This time, strictly the airfare.
Okay. You don't get paid while you're traveling?
No, I'm not charging for time.
You usually do?
Again, depends on the circumstances.
And you know I gotta ask
Hey,
this.
Jessica.
That's okay.
Do you get paid more for sitting in that chair
It
than
is-
you do for
it's a
not being?
little
Inside the
lax for
courtroom
me too,
testimony costs
Pepper.
more than outside?
It's the same fee.
350.
It's a basic 10-hour charge for testimony.
And how many hours have you logged so far?
Total for the trial.
Hey, Mo.
States 559
All right.
and 558. Mr.
think I got
Churchill, do you
it.
recognize those?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay. Your Honor, 558 and 559 without objection.
Without objection, Your Honor.
They're admitted.
560 and 561, Mr. Xerxes, do you recognize those?
Yes, sir, I do.
Your Honor, 560 and 561 without objection.
No objection, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
They're admitted.
564,
Oh, he definitely called
Yes,
him
sir, I
for a
do.
reason.
564 without objection, Your Honor.
They're admitted.
566,
Yes, sir.
and you're saying yes, sir, that means you recognize them.
Yes, sir.
566 without objection,
Without objection, Your Honor.
and 557.
Yes, sir.
557 without objection, Your Honor.
Without objection.
They're admitted.
562 and 563.
Yes, sir, I'm familiar with this report.
Thank y'all
Yes,
for
sir.
being
Your Honor,
patient
562
with
and
me.
563 without
7
objection.
hours and
Without
10
objection,
minutes.
Your
All
Honor.
right. Thank you.
And Dr.
Mr. Of the blocks that would align with the fifth row of the toe end of the shoe, which is obscured in item 103,
Close enough.
left shoe,
We'll just
but is
wait.
clearly visible in the right shoe. Due to the quantity,
Hey,
Is that
Mama
quality?
Stone. Good
quality,
to
excuse
see
me,
you.
of the impression, a more meaningful conclusion cannot be rendered. The item 21 and 95, right, have been eliminated based on the outsole design.
Hey, Chick
So
Those would
Tracy.
be Paul's shoes and Maggie's.
So she found that that was consistent with Paul's shoe, correct?
Based on her opinion, yes.
And I'm not gonna go through every one of these, but I would just want to briefly go through. Did she also on the 105.2 footwear impression?
Hey, Mrs. W. Thank you so much, Jenny. Your lifesaver. Otherwise, I'd have been scrolling forever.
Say that Paul's shoes were consistent.
And continues, the lack of clarity in the impression makes it difficult to determine if it was made by the left or the right shoe. Therefore, a more meaningful conclusion cannot be reached. And they were eliminated.
It's consistent, correct? The lack of clarity make it difficult to determine a more meaningful, but it's consistent, right? They weren't eliminated. Why'd you say that?
I read the next line.
Yeah, but that's item 21 and 95.
Correct.
You were trying to imply that.
No, I wouldn't do that.
You made a mistake?
No.
Well, you said they
The
were
last-
eliminated.
In standing up, badgering this witness next to him, he can read it, he can comment from back here. He's in the doorway, but again, object.
For clarity.
It's not,
He's
the
been
objection is to you standing in the doorway.
He's been standing up here the whole time. Aimed a gun at us yesterday. He aimed a gun at us from here yesterday.
The goose good for the gander is a rule, and I can't find it in my rule book.
Well, we're operating with limited space. Just as a matter of trial procedure, it's extremely unusual for counsel to stand in the locations where counsel have been standing throughout the trial. But given the limited space, that's somewhat understandable. But he has moved to the podium. Go right ahead.
Did you
sound
misspeak just then?
crabby, sir.
I did.
Man.
All right, the last sentence states, the items 21 and 95, the other two articles of footwear,
Hoot, you
are
need your
are
whoopee
eliminated
and a
based on their
meme.
outsole design
But Paul's wasn't eliminated.
in a very basic way. And because, again, by her report, by what she reports as the contamination issues, right? Blood seeping into other areas, the detail is not there to be definitive. Also, there is no rendering of the size of the image from any of the crime scene photographs.
Poot's
Could
mad
it be
because
this
Alec
big?
won't share the
Or
Tic
could it be this
Tacs.
big? I can't eliminate based on size.
Alec is as stingy with the Tic Tacs as he is with his money.
And if we could go to 105.3, I'll stay back here and left you a copy there, and I've got a copy.
Yes, sir.
That's the unknown footwear impression represented.
What exhibit? He was looking- No, I mean, what exhibit you just handed me? What did you just hand it?
The report that you didn't object to.
No, I don't object to it, I just don't want to know what it is.
He just told you what it is.
It's 1/562.
Thank you.
Sorry. I forgot where we were.
105.3.
Thank you. Under 105.3, can you tell me, which is comparing, I'm looking now in states 40, and do you see 105.3 in states 40, and did you review that when you were evaluating? this case. And
I read the reports and matched photographs up to the scene, yes. Or the reports. Whoops, sorry.
And did Agent Morley conclude that item 105.3 unknown footwear impression is consistent with the outsole design of item 103 right shoe? Did she conclude that?
I just,
Oh, I didn't know. I picked it up, but it's still up there. So
it cannot be,
105.3.
it just says it cannot be excluded.
Did she say impression is consistent with the outside design of 103 right shoe? In the second paragraph.
And continuing, although there is minimal amount of detail observed in item 103, right shoe cannot be excluded due to the basic design and structure. Again, the limited amount of detail made a very qualified findings. The other part, continuing on with this document and her final report, they all indicate that there could be no size comparison. And again, there's no way to determine that.
But she tried.
She tried the best she could, yes.
And going on down, 105.4, there was an unknown impression represented on the back of Maggie's leg.
Yes, sir.
I don't even know if he talked about it, but I'm going to 541.
Yes, sir.
What did she say about that? What were her findings?
I believe that she couldn't do anything with it.
I will say that the Elmer Fudd moment.
Although there's a definite pattern visible,
it
cannot
was
be
uncomfortable.
definitively determined if the impression is a footwear impression or if it was created by some other object, right?
Correct.
And you agree with that?
Yes.
Ron.
And the only thing she
thank
said
you
it was
so
kind of
much.
consistent with was the
Yes.
fabric portion of item 95 sandals that couldn't be excluded. And those are Maggie sandals, right? We don't know what it is, right?
Correct.
I'm not saying
Sandals?
that he's not a
Could be that.
promo.
Could be
I
anything.
like the
Could be a
poop
tire on an ATV.
sometimes. I get what he's trying
Let's
to
keep
do,
going. We're almost through 105.5.
and I can appreciate it sort of. It feels a
that,
little dirty pool to
Compared
me,
the
but whatever.
Shoes with 557, which has been offered.
What is 557? Okay.
105.5, 105.6. You've looked at this.
The area behind the door. Yes, sir.
You've looked at that. Overall, the item 105.5 known footwear corresponds with the outside.
It's always about me, Modine. Didn't you know? No, I do like the pooped. I don't know. I feel like when they're in the chats, like you are talking to me, unless you're tagging somebody else. And I like to acknowledge the chat. I don't mean to make you feel like I'm badgering the witness. I'm not in a doorway if that makes you feel any better. Honestly, Gregory, they're arguing over these footprints that were in the sand that, to be quite frank, weren't preserved very well. The pictures that were taken weren't taken that great. And so that nobody can do anything with them. Bottom line, they can't say if they are Maggie's or if they are Paul's or if they're some combination of both or when they were. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. Alice is doing good. Cool. She's chilling. All right. So the next witness is the caretaker. And, basically she said that Alex came at all kinds of times to see his mom. And then the witness after that, although he had some really interesting charts and data, at the end of the day, what he conceded on cross was that Maggie and Paul's phones were locked and stayed locked after 8:49 and some odd seconds. And that one of the things that I did find interesting, though, is this what do you call it? Orientation thing that, your phone does, right? And what causes it to register as an orientation change. And what he was saying is that the phone has to, I couldn't kind of they're trying, I think what they're really trying to do is figure out whether or not, like, the state wants to say that Alex is the one that chunked Maggie's cell phone out of his vehicle, likely when he was on the way to his mother's. Okay. And the defense is saying, basically, that's not what, that's the, it doesn't prove that. And that it can't be determined when that the orientation noted in the Cellbrite records, in the Cellbrite dump, you can't attribute that to the phone being thrown, because the phone has to be not unlocked or unlocked. It's got to be unlocked in order for it to, I don't know, it didn't make it a whole lot of sense to me. I just, hey, Crime Sleuthin', it didn't, that's what I thought it took. That's what it showed to me, Laura, is that, although other people, he can have the phone if the steps aren't the same. Yes, he can. What you're assuming is that in order for that he has to have her phone and his phone in his hand at the same time. That's what you're saying, right? And I don't think that that's the case. I think he had her phone at one point and then his phone at one point. I don't think he walked around with both phones in his hand together. You're right. You're right. The defense is trying to create reasonable doubt, and that's a much better way to put it. And you're right. That's all they don't actually even have to prove anything. They're trying to raise reasonable doubt, and that's the way I need to put it. It's the state's defense. It's the state's job to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt, and all the defense needs to do is inject reasonable doubt, and you're exactly right. But I don't feel like they have raised with these experts that they've had. I don't feel like they've raised reasonable doubt. I don't. I feel that I am curious about some of the backlight, and the backlight coming on at a time when there were no notifications coming in is interesting to me, because somebody was handling her phone, and likely, I've done it too. I've picked up my phone and unintentionally squeezed the side, which will cause the backlight to come on. So I feel like it could be maybe he was wrestling it away from her. And this can be an argument for anybody, for the killer, period. Because I kind of am curious, if Maggie fell forward, was her phone underneath her? Did the killer have to jostle Maggie a little bit to get her phone? Or, yeah, because her hands were underneath her. Both her and Paul's hands were underneath the bodies. Or, because see, I don't know how Maggie does it. See, for me, when I am when I go outside, I usually have my phone, and my tea in my hand, my cup, right? And a lot of times what I do is when I go back inside, usually I have to wrangle the cat, so I have to carry her. So then my phone goes in my back pocket, and Alice is in one hand arm and my tea is in the other, right? And then I open the door. So I'm wondering if that is what, I don't know what kind of phone it is, just an Android. I'm wondering if perhaps that could be Pepper, that he tried that he tried to go and get into her phone. But the thing of it is, didn't he have the code for it? See, this is what's difficult for me with because I don't have an iPhone. All right. But I do know it's hard for me. I don't know what iPhones do. I can only tell you what like my phone does. We need somebody who has an iPhone to know. And then I wanted to see this other comment up here. I mean, this is a very good point. Folly Beach, USA. Took me a minute to read your name. So but I will say this. One of the things that the expert said that I found interesting, I thought about that too, that she was trying to call 911 and like if the state's theory is correct, okay, and Paul was first, and Maggie, bless her heart, which I understand this as a mom, I don't care, I would run towards gunshots for my children, absolutely. So she's got her phone out and she's trying to fiddle with it to get to call 911, and it was grabbed. Would explain some of the well, that's the thing. He did. Okay, K-Bird. So remember when they were they've been talking about the phone situation, right? This has been some testimony that we've heard different people talk about, right? Different witnesses testify about. And I know that they all have said that Paul gave them the code to Maggie's phone, and that Maggie, and that it worked. It was Paul's phone that he couldn't get in. So, but the one thing that I thought was interesting was what the prosecution on cross asked. The explanation that the witness was testifying to was with a current iOS system. And Maggie's at the time, I think the iOS that she was using was like a 14 point something, and they're at like, I don't know, 15 or 16 now version. So some of the sensitivities and stuff were different with her operating system than they are currently, which I thought that was interesting. Now, why he didn't take Paul's phone, that I don't understand. And yeah, I mean, I know my code to my phone. I made the code. Do you know how many times I've typed it in wrong, being in a hurry, or even sometimes not even being in a hurry, just, fat fingers? That's one of the things I never could figure out, is why Paul's phone was there. Although I sort of always, I kind of suspected that maybe he maybe wanted to make it look like a robbery. I don't know. I mean, people they do stupid stuff, and they don't always think of all the things, right? You would be amazed. I know that at some point it's bound to happen. Well, I think we're seeing it with Brian Koberger. Now, granted, his situation is different. He would have learned things like behavior and some like investigative techniques, but he wouldn't have, and a little bit about crime scene, but probably no more than what we know, right? Maybe a little bit more. But he made mistakes. So I think people, I don't know. I don't know why he did any of the things that he did, to be honest with you. I don't know. Ooh, that's a good point too. Alex knew Paul and Rogan were talking on the phone, so that's a good point. It's a good point. It's a very good point. Well, I guess tomorrow maybe we find out if he takes the stand. What do you guys think? No, Mo, I'm taking it all into consideration. There are some things that there are certain things that you shouldn't, that you wouldn't forget. There are some of it. Some of the things that I've said about Alec, I can allow for mistakes on both sides, whether it's for guilt or whether it's for innocent. Honestly, I think if Alec gets up there, then I'll be shocked, but I'll be here for it. Well, I'll say that. Okay, I'll tell you. One of the things that that could potentially prove his innocence is the fact that they have not put those guns in his hands. That's difficult. It is problematic that he was down at those kennels, right? And it would have been way easier and probably smarter for him to have said, I left from the kennels and I went to go check on my mom. They have not put those guns in his hand, and that's the truth. And they don't, and not only that, but they haven't put the ammunition in those guns in his hands. You know what I mean? Like the shells that were extracted have Paul's DNA on them, not Alex. So they don't have Alec loading the gun. They have Paul loading the gun. So, I mean, there is yeah, he had no idea that Paul made that video, but he did know that Rogan heard him on the phone call with Paul, because Rogan said it in front of Maggie's parents. So we'll see. Well, no, it's not reasonable doubt. And I'll tell you why. From my perspective. Okay. Because if you take the totality of all of the other circumstances surrounding the situation and you apply common sense, it is more likely than not that Alec is the one that pulled that trigger. What they don't have are the murder weapons, and what they don't have is Alec loading the murder weapons. However, Buster testified that he kept the guns loaded. He himself kept his own firearms loaded. So that's problematic. Well, exactly. They have nothing direct, but that's not required. And you're okay. So, Mo, if you can't put him at the crime scene, it's problematic. It wasn't a crime scene during that video. It only becomes a crime scene after the fact. Okay. Before the fact, it was just the kennels. It's where so I mean, the fact of the matter is that he was on that video. His voice was, it's clear as day. And I know you and I notice you've never at one time have said that's not his voice. It is his voice. And 5 minutes, right after that, Maggie and Paul's phones lock forever. Okay. Period. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. 4 minutes. That place. You want me to do a poll? All right. What should the poll be? What should the poll be, you guys? How do we know that they died when the phone's locked? Paul had 2% battery. Could he have been conserving battery life? I mean, it's not like Paul was miles from civilization. He was just down at the kennels. He was carrying on a conversation that that just ended abruptly. There was no conclusion to that conversation. And he couldn't have been conserving too much battery life because it took like another hour and a half before the battery finally died. And worst case scenario, Paul could have run back to the house and charged his phone. And okay, so we want to do. All right, let's do this poll. Okay, I got it. I'm gonna stop sharing. Hold on, let me get out of here and let me go to my YouTube channel and I know what we're gonna do. Let's see we'll do 2. All right, we'll figure out who is going, if Alec is going to testify. That'll be the first one we do. Okay. Give me just a second. Okay. Here we go. All right, there we go. I have posted the poll. Good night, Pepper. See you tomorrow. Okay, so Crime Sleuth, then you open your YouTube, you have to go to your YouTube channel, obviously. You have to go to your live that you're doing, and you scroll down to the bottom where you see where you would add the comments, right? You have the smiley face, you have the $, and then you have the plus. If you hit the plus, it'll say engage with your audience, and then it'll give you an option to either start a Q&A or start a poll. And that's all you got to do. All right, so let's see the results of this poll. Hold on, let me see. So we have 38% saying yes, 39% say yes, 61% say no. All right, now it's changed to 41% say yes, 59% say no, he won't take the stand. All right. Now we got 42. No, back to 4. Okay. I'm not letting you people vote no more. All right. Only 39 people voted. Okay. The next poll. Let's see. Let's see. I do. And I'm only going to give you guys 2 options on this one just because. I forgot that South Carolina has a clause in case it's a hung jury. All right. Poll is up. How will the jury vote? Will the jury find Alec guilty or not guilty? I'll leave it longer. Sorry, you guys. Ooh, Heather Bratt has a source in the courtroom. What? And after we do this poll, your girls got to bounce. I'm tired. They call it like a dynamite charge or something like that. And they'll make them go back to deliberation. Eventually, yes, they could. It could end up in a hung jury, but there's stuff that happens before they'll let that be a hung jury. Does that make sense? And see, that's my point, Quinny, and this is why I think it would be detrimental for him to take the stand. It's risky for any defendant, even under the best of circumstances, to take the stand. But when you have him on audio admitting that he is a liar, him taking the stand how could you believe him? Isn't that what we teach our kids? Or maybe this is what I used to tell my kids. When you lie to me, then you become a liar. And so now I'll always wonder, and I'll always be second guessing if you're telling me the truth. Now, granted, these are my kids, and so I know when they're lying. Not all the time. I'm not a human lie detector. I'm not a Fokker, but you know, that's what we taught our kids. And so it's difficult. Mo, there's a difference in saying, yeah, that supper that you worked so hard to cook me tasted good when it really didn't. And saying, I was never down at the kennels after dinner where it turns out your wife and your son were brutally murdered. Like, there's a huge difference in that. So that's the lie. Of course, lies have different degrees. Come on. And the jury knows that too. Like, do you think the jury would hold it against Alec if he told Maggie one night that, yes, that pie you baked me was the best pie I've ever eaten in my whole life, even if it wasn't? No. But they are going to hold, and we're talking about lying about a crime, reporting of a crime. So when he called 911 and he came up with that entire cockamamie bullshit ass story, okay, that's what did he do when he found Maggie and Paul? He called 911 and told a story. That's where the credibility is. That's where it becomes problematic. And he stole and he lied from those clients for all those years. There are white lies. And that's true. If you steal a piece of candy, it's a crime. And it's wrong. And stealing is wrong, period. I don't give a shit what you steal. There you go, Lolo. Thank you. There's lying to protect somebody, to spare somebody's feelings, and then there's lying to manipulate and control a situation and get your way. I don't know. We'll have to see, Laura. We'll have to see. All right, let's see how this the poll. Let me see how this poll is going. All right, 53 people have voted. 74% say that the jury will vote guilty, and 26% say that they will vote not guilty. Well, then what would be okay, so we're going to go with the way what Mo said here. I don't know about that. If someone lies to me, even white lie, I have doubts about them, because if they tell me a small lie, what else would they lie about? Which is so why would it be a good idea for them to then put Alec on the stand? How would that help him at all? I think that at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is Alec doesn't have credibility because he is an admitted liar. Period. The end. And the jury heard it out of his own mouth. It's one thing for the prosecution to call him a liar. It's another thing for the prosecution to play audio of him admitting he's a liar. That's huge. And that's that. I'm not Obama. How you doing? I've seen you over in Brittany's chat. Good to see you. All right, you guys. Thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. I'm tired. Hey, Anaphylaxis. Okay, so I'm not going to argue about this anymore with the lying and the credibility. Because obviously you have to draw some lines at some place. If everybody lies, then why are we watching this trial at all? Why are we listening to any of these witnesses? Because then nobody is credible because everybody lies. Okay, Mo, I will. I'm preparing for more defense wins. Let me know when they happen, okay? All right, you guys. Thank you all for being here. I am getting off. I am tired, and I will see you all tomorrow night. And we'll see if one Alec Murdaugh takes the stand tomorrow. Wait, you want me to wait, Lance? Terminal Lance, what's up? I do think he's guilty. Terminal Lance, I do. All right, you guys. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Bye.